Welcome to the 4-step framework for mastering the art of inclusive storytelling and making a difference. You're in the right place. If you've got a team that is sick and tired of hearing about the demands for more diversity on or off camera, you're in scripted content. And you know that our content has an impact on society. You want to change the negative impact the scripted content can have. No more content that kills. You are willing to remove stereotypes from your content. This is not for you if you're focused on narrow casting. If you only want to create shows for one market, uniracial, could be anything, could be big budget genre movies or working for a small network. You don't think content matters, or you like feeling powerless when it comes to how do you engage today's racialized markets, or how do you work with BIPOC people. Or maybe you are cynical about efforts to make change. If any of those describe you, then now's a great time for you to say goodbye and thank you so much for spending the time that you did with us. So my promise to you is that I'm going to give you some value. You're going to get a new point of view on really what it means to be inclusive and how to engage diverse audiences, changing audiences in today's market. You're also going to get a really good sense of how much power you have to make the world a better place and how you can take a leadership role and boost the bottom line of your content. As humans, our first instinct is to resist change. Some of us do it out loud. The 4-year-old will stamp their feet and throw their hands up and down. And some of us do it internally. But it can be some version of, no, please don't make me. So I'm asking you to keep your mind open and be willing to disprove the old dog can't be taught new tricks theory. So we're going to start off by doing a mind-opening exercise just so you can be with us, because part of the challenge of when you're receiving new information is just being able to let it in, right? When all of your other information is sort of not fitting with this information. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to do an exercise that's going to actually let you give this content a really fair assessment, because I'm hoping that you're going to go through this session, and at the end of the session, you're going to get an opportunity to get involved and get some tools in your own hands that are going to help you just relax around being inclusive when you're being asked to do that, and also be able to benefit your content and the society that you live in, no matter where you are in the world. I focused this particular workshop on race because that's where my expertise is. That's where I've been focusing my entire career. And I don't have the expertise to tell you what the issues are, the challenges are when it comes to being a person living with disabilities, or a person who is LGBTQ plus, or there are specialists who know that world and know what you need to do to actually accommodate those people's needs in scripted content or any other kind of content. What I will say to you, however, is that the process that you learn here is one that you can definitely apply across the board. Okay, so this is not just an investment in, you know, the race piece, and then you're going to have to get another, you will have to get some other information, but I think if you listen very carefully to this, you'll understand where to get the other information from. So, we're going to begin with a mind opening exercise. So just relax, sit up straight in your chair. Oh, take a deep breath. And we're going to go and we're going to look up. And then first we're going to look left, then we're going to look right. And we're going to do that for 3 breaths on each side. We're hoping for at least 30 seconds. So imagine your breath is 5 seconds in. You might hold it for a couple of seconds, and then you will release for another 5 seconds. So that should make sure that we cover 30 seconds, depending on how you count your fives. Okay? So let's begin. And keep your head straight. Move your eyes upward only. Leave the rest of your face downwards. Turn your eyes to the left as far as you can go. And breathe in. Don't turn your head. I just did. Keep your eyes focused. Keep your eyes going left even between breaths. So when you breathe out, don't come to the center. That might be an instinct. Okay, after the 3 breaths, then you can come to the center. Relax your eyes for a moment. Look up again, and this time you're going to look to the right as far as you can. Keep your nose forward. Keep looking right. Nose forward. Relax your eyes. Breathe in. Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that with me. And that will hopefully, that's an exercise that I ask you to do when you're actually doing the course with us. That's an exercise that I ask you to do just to start off the workshop. Whenever you're going to actually do a session and sit down and listen, that's a great way to start off your listening session, is to just do that relaxing exercise and open your mind and be ready. So I hope you got a cup of tea and something to write on so that you can take some notes. I've just gotten very relaxed. So my voice has completely changed, which I think is amazing, because really this is for me a very joyful process. I wouldn't be inviting you to become more inclusive and work in an environment where you're working with a whole bunch of different kinds of people because it's misery. The best job I ever had was one where that's exactly what we were doing. 37% of the people that we were working with were women, and 37% of them were also people of color. So we had the best time ever. I call it, we were like chinchillas rolling around in the sand of diversity, because it was just so much fun. So that's what I want for you. And there's some stuff getting in your way, and I want to make sure you're aware of it so that you can stop doing that stuff and get on to the business of really learning how to do things in a way that really make a difference. So we're going to talk today about the three biggest mistakes that most productions are making. And I'm going to introduce you to a 4-step framework that is really about empowering the entire scripted content industry, from script to distribution, to engage today's changing audience. Today's audience, there's a whole segment of our population that isn't really being served by mainstream TV. At least it's not being served as well as it could be. So that's what our intention is, to help you understand how you can best serve the needs of this audience. So one of the first things we're going to do is introduce you to Peacemaker Gems, because Inclusive Secret, which is the program you're learning about, is the newest Peacemaker Gem. Because its aim is to create a peaceful world where all races can live and work in harmony and peace, they have earned the opportunity to become a Peacemaker Gem. So these bracelets will help you find other people who are also using the Inclusive Secret program. So until the entire industry is using this process, it will be beneficial to know that you're not alone, and for your team to remember the ideals of their work. So one of the biggest challenges I think that this industry has faced is an inability to really get the incumbent industry to embrace the idea of bringing on this racialized talent. Like what? Why? What's in it for me? So let me show you what's in it for you. So imagine that this circle has all of the lived experience about race and culture, not just your own, but all of the computations and permutations that can exist in racialized human existence. Language, gender identity, gender preference, people living with disabilities and invisible disabilities, and religion and gender pronouns, and complexity within racial groups, and politics and nation groups, and all of it is within this circle. How much of it do you have insider knowledge of? So I'll give you an example. Because of my experience, I know some things about Trinidadian culture as a daughter of a Trinidadian lawyer and language teacher. And I know what it means to be Black in Canada, growing up as a child and educated in British Columbia with white people for the most part, and what it's like to be someone who loves to travel but doesn't, and who speaks English and some French. So when I think about that, in the context of all of the knowledge out there, I know that I only have a dot in that circle. But we're going to give me a big slice of the pie, because it's going to be easier to see than a dot for this exercise. So, so that's all the things that I talked to you about are the things that I know, right? And then let's look at what we don't know. So I don't know how to speak Mandarin at all. And I have only got a working traveler's knowledge of Spanish and maybe German. And really, I know mostly swear words in German, but anyway. And I don't have any experience as a deep sea diver, you know? So all the things that I don't know are going to be a larger piece of that circle. So the fact is that both of these triangles are a function of what we know, right? We know that we don't know, This is what we know. This is what we don't know. Okay. And we know that we don't know this. And we know that we know this. And so both of those are really a function of our knowing, right? So this part of the circle here represents what we don't know, that we don't know. And that's what we call the blind spot. So that's where the magic happens, because that's where the racialized community will fill in the gaps for you. The gaps of your knowledge about the audience that they belong to. Okay? So everyone's blind spots look different because we've all had different experiences. Even if we have the same color skin or lived experience, may be very different. Therefore, we may have awarenesses that others don't have, and others may be aware of things that we don't know. So, for instance, at the age of 12, I traveled to Tanzania. So I actually know what a Makonde carving village looks like and how they organize the carvers. Not everybody who collects African art has had that experience. So we could be Black, we could be African art collectors, but we could have a different understanding of the process. So this is why now it's really important for everyone to take this training, because this is a way for us to share the lived experience that we have with our productions. Okay. So this process, not this blind spot, but this process that I am actually going to be sharing with you a bit about, is actually intended to be able to protect you, sort of cover your blind spot, if you will, protect you so that your blind spots don't remain exposed. So, even if I'm a member of one of the targeted groups and I think, well, I'm South Asian, I don't need any training about diversity, or, you now understand that we know about our communities, but we don't know about anybody else's. So it behooves all of us to learn a process where we can share the knowledge that everyone else can bring to the table so that we don't miss any of the blind spots. These blind spots are our opportunity to engage today's market. So hiring racialized personnel is the number one way to engage racialized audiences. But you can easily hire racialized team members without engaging racialized audiences, because it takes more than just hiring them and walking away. And that's why I created this system. The blind spot was the number one way that I came to value hiring racialized people. Hi, I'm Karen King, and this is my grade 7 photo. I'll give you 2 seconds to find me. I'm the Black one. I'm a mom with 2 sons, and I live with my husband and one of my sons and my 93-year-old mom. My favorite thing to do is bargain hunting. I will love a trip to Marshall's or the thrift store, even better, Goodwill, love all of it, right? I took my first online course when I was about 22, so it's kind of cool to be authoring my own course right now. When I was 8, Martin Luther King Jr., the Black American civil rights leader, was assassinated. And I, like everyone, was quite affected by that. And I made a promise to him that I would continue his work. I won the Best Supporting Actor prize shortly after that, when they took out my braids for a Parks and Rec production of Hair. Eventually, I became the first Black woman in Canada to produce a movie. And that film, Rude, had its first world premiere at the official Cannes Film Festival, the most prestigious festival in the world. It's the first time that an all-Black creative team makes a movie in Canada. I'm the first two-time winner of the Canadian Academy's Diversity Award for the best representation of multicultural Canadians on and off screen. And I commissioned the first dramedy half-hour show owned by Black people for a private national network. And we win the Canadian Association of Broadcasters Gold Prize for fiction. My films have won countless other awards working with South Asian, Chinese, Korean, and Black directors and their audiences, including Nisha Pahuja, who becomes an A-list filmmaker after launching her career with me with a film called Bollywood Bound. We told stories at the NFB of Japanese internment, Mexican migrant workers, Jewish folk singers, and how Black Canadians took racism to court. The National Film Board marketed those films to their core audiences and to the mainstream audiences. And boy, did we learn a lot over the course of 6 years about what to do and not to do. We were adding threads to the multicultural tapestry of Canada, nation building. Making these films, I learned how nuanced moments make a huge difference to racialized audiences. And those moments can come from a variety of places. And exactly what difference it makes to have racialized people in the off-screen roles to deliver them. I've seen the different responses that a scene will have for its core audience, who will be killing itself laughing, while other audiences might only smile. Those inside jokes can only be provided by a racialized person. The industry has a history of preferring to hire white talent and have them create content that is best delivered by racialized talent. So in many cases, I was giving racialized people their first credit in the industry. And while they had the talent to do the job, they may not have done the job quite this way before. But I soon realized that it was always worth the hassle of adapting them to a new medium. I prided myself on being able to read a script and knowing where the priorities for diversity hiring would be and executing. But I didn't start there. I'm 12 in this photograph. And this was the year that the local media gives me a rave review for my Cowardly Lion and the Wizard of Oz. But I don't get the drama prize. The next September, I'm excited to hear what play we're doing, because I'm sure he'll let me audition for a role without a mask this time, now that he knows I can act. Instead, I get told that there are no black parts, and I never, ever did a play again. I'm acutely aware that there's something unfair going on when talented people can't get an opportunity to act, and there's an unwillingness to recognize their talent, all just because they're black. I also started to notice that the portrayals on TV of black people have nothing to do with any black people I know. I want to change it all. So I start to aim for a career in TV. Now, imagine you're black, 23 years old, and applying for your first job in news. The local news director tells you if you were Indigenous, he would hire you in a heartbeat. but there's already a black woman in the Vancouver market. Maybe you'd have better luck in Toronto, where there's a larger black audience. No one had ever made the barriers that faced me so plain before. That was the first time that I understood that the market dictated who the storytellers needed to be. Well, I must say, no one had ever made the barriers that faced me so plain before. That was the first time I understood that the market dictated who the storytellers needed to be. So here's my son's classroom photo, and it's pretty much what our audience looks like now. So here's what the audience looks like now. What do your storytellers look like? If you want to serve a market, you need to hire that market. Scripted production has been doing its best at hiring BIPOC, but for most of you, it isn't making any difference to the content or the audiences that it usually does when you hire the market. And that's why I created this course. That's the industry's challenge to overcome. There were challenges from being 12 to being an industry executive. So let's just give you a quick breakdown. So when I leave my white world in BC and move to Toronto, I start producing commercials. I'm the only person of color on staff and on set. Even though I'm committed to hiring people of color on screen, it creates so much anxiety because I really don't know what to say, and I don't know what to do, and I'm terrified that somebody is going to be offended and say something, and it's just so stressful asking the agency. I'm shaking. My voice is trembling. I can hear my heart beating. Can we do some ethnic casting? I'd squeak out. Sometimes they'd say yes, and sometimes they'd say no. I start to get people of color cast in silent on camera roles, but I didn't have as much luck hiring crews. I wasn't sure if they'd let me down, steal the equipment, embarrass me, or if I could trust them to be professional. I realized that growing up in a white world, I got the same programming as everyone else, being taught not to trust people of color. So now I understand why when I left DVLA and asked Humphrey Carter to write me a letter of reference, all it said was, "Aaron can be trusted. Please don't hesitate to call if you have any further questions." At the time, I was so annoyed. I was actually dumbfounded. I expected him to say how wonderful I was. Now I understand that trust is what allows discrimination to exist. And that would have been what prevented me from getting hired. I was only able to hire a couple of black folks while I was in commercials. I hired a PA who went over budget and a receptionist who left the country instead of showing up for work. Derek warned me, just because they're black, Karen, doesn't mean they'll be any good. I felt like a failure for not getting more black people into commercials, but I was not giving up. I was going to make a movie, and in that world, I would have control to be getting it done. When I left commercials, I hosted a live hotline show for a couple of seasons and experienced firsthand the terror of having white makeup people who were quite willing to put their pink powder on me, despite the fact that it doesn't match my skin tone. I just let them, because I want them to see the problem. They don't. Instead of the makeup artist getting the right color makeup for her kit, I am expected to provide my own makeup. I don't get paid for my makeup. She gets paid for her makeup kit, even if she doesn't use it. At Norman Jewison's Canadian Film Centre, I worked on a short film with a black director and an all-black cast, black PM, black pretty department, black photographer, black unit publicist, black PAs. I had broken through the tape at the end of a race, kind of like finishing my first marathon. I'm finally comfortable hiring diverse talent and working with them, and I really enjoy that process. I get why white people enjoy working together. It's fun. Getting comfortable working with black crews got me jobs working with the Family Channel, Columbia Pictures when they came to Toronto to shoot their movies and movies of the week. Helping productions locate black crew, finding those who were in unions or not in unions and getting them permitted into the show. I was usually hired as the producer's assistant, but my sole responsibility was this diversity work. I'd learned how to win playing the numbers game. Success for me meant how many people did I get hired. There were some issues. People in brown face, reverse racism accusations. It wasn't easy. Some people quit when they heard they'd been hired for their race. Others who got moved up the waiting list at the union got themselves fired because they felt uncomfortable being prioritized. My perception is you've lost a lot of jobs because you are a person of color. So if you finally get one because you are a person of color, do take it. The problem in most cases is that most people of color don't actually know what it is that they're expected to do when they're hired for their race. So when I was ready to shoot my own movie, I let the Jamaican PM that we found, yay, know that we wanted an all-black crew. And I gave her the binder with all the black crew that I'd hired on all of my service productions. I arrive at the meeting where all the people we hire go through the script with the director and the AD, the production meeting, and I'm excited because I'm going to see all the people that I work with on the other shows again, and I haven't seen them for a while. So when I look up, a sea of white faces are flooding into the room. There's only one black wardrobe assistant, and I'm devastated. I didn't know how this could happen. I was explicit about what we wanted. Is it possible that my producing partner didn't know? No. He was on the board of the Black Film and Video Network. The other one was on the board of another full screen organization. They understood the commitment and the need for us to be hiring below the line black people. Didn't they? Somehow, someone had allowed this end run to be made. She didn't come back to me and say, I'm not comfortable. I just want to hire the guys I always work with. Lesson learned. People go to all ends not to hire a racialized team, even racialized people. I feel betrayed by people who would not have been allowed to make their film if I had not agreed. And worse, I can't believe I failed again. After Rude and another couple of gigs as a consultant, I landed an amazing job at the National Film Board. There were two jobs available at that time. One was as an executive producer at the Canadian Film Center, and one with the National Film Board. And I thought, at the Film Center, I'd be always trying to shoehorn people of color in the door and probably getting a lot of grief for it. At the NFB, it would be my sole purpose. There was a no-brainer. I didn't apply for the job at the Film Center. I only applied for the job at the NFB, but so did 700 other people. I was assisted by Claire Prato and her husband Roger McTerr, who gave me a big box of videotapes to watch because I was not in documentaries. I was in commercials. I produced over 50 commercials. I just started making a couple of short films that had this movie that had gone to Cannes. I'd been doing some consulting, but I hadn't done any work in documentary, so I had to get up to speed. And they really supported me getting up to speed and learning so that I could actually, eventually, after 3 interviews, 3 different panels of people got the job. So I was there for 6 years, and during that time, became the first 2-time winner of the Canada Award, and I told you about all the other films as well. This is where I really got up close and personal with the team and understood the difference between a white person doing a job and a person of color doing a job and the impact that it had on the audience. So with the commercials and, being on air, the short films, the service productions, and the success of Rude, and all those award-winning NFB films that were serving diverse markets, I was able to land a really great job at a broadcaster as the executive director of independent production, where I got to create the policy that leveled the playing field for managing the multi-million-dollar funds and had free reign to commission content for development and production. By then, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt what difference it made to have racialized talent in every role, and when I commissioned Echo, it was organized to engage 3 racialized audiences that we were after. When I joined the team at Global TV, commissioning big budget drama for the second largest private national conventional broadcaster in the country, I was able to get all the independent producers I worked with hiring diverse talent on and off screen. This day I was on set with one of the black directors who had been an actor in Rude. He did an amazing job of his episode. My last day at Global Television, I was having a meeting with a showrunner who I'd spent 2 hours having breakfast with before he started the job, talking about the need to engage our racialized audiences. And then a week later, he presents me with the most racist casting I've ever been presented on one of my shows. When I tell him that all the people of color are bad guys, he fixes it right away and swaps out some racialized bad guys for some white bad guys. Nothing had changed. All the people of color were still bad guys. He took offense because I was shouting at him. I'd become the angry black woman, and I just couldn't get out of there fast enough. But how do you figure you're going to engage people to watch your show if you're depicting them as stereotypes? That's obvious to me, but it isn't obvious to most people in the industry who keep telling a single story about most communities. I remember that I was so happy to be having a story with Chinese characters on 2 of the shows that I was working on, and both of them pitched stories about human trafficking. Seriously. I knew I had to share everything I know about engaging audiences. At Global, I got to commission hit shows from BIPOC producers. When I was sitting at the production meeting for The Kink in My Hair, we had 3 Black producers, several Black writers, a Black pretty department, Black musicians, picture editors, a Black production secretary, and me, a Black production executive. No one understood why I suddenly burst into tears, least of all me. I got that we were making history being the first Black-owned dramedy series aired on a private national broadcaster, but in my mind had forgotten about the rude awakening, but my body hadn't. But the tough part of that show was getting the network equipped to release a show to a racialized audience and a mainstream market. The publicist had never heard of Black History Month, so I knew we were in trouble. And I put together a tool that I share with you in the course that allowed the producers to override the shortcomings of the network team, and it worked like a charm. We had a superb publicity and marketing campaign, thanks to the Hub. So you might be wondering, why now? Well, I nearly went to my grave with all of the knowledge that I had. And I realized while I was waiting in the truck for the jaws of life to pull me out, that's me, under the dashboard, under the steering wheel, kind of hinged because my seatbelt has got around my waist, and somehow I guess I got thrown out of the shoulder part when this steel bar here hits the car, and I go under. Anyway, whatever. While I was down there, I asked, why have I been spared? Because this is an accident that happens frequently, and people who are in this kind of an accident are often beheaded. And so it was clear to me that it was a pretty bad accident. So I'm asking myself, why am I still here, right? And the answer that came back to me was, because you haven't shared your secret with the industry. You haven't kept your promise. And that promise they were talking about was the one that I made when I was 8 years old to Martin Luther King. And it took me 2 years to really, and I'm still in recovery from the accident. But having that experience enabled me to, I don't feel like a failure anymore. I'm not afraid to be the one anymore. Ever feel like you aren't the one to make a difference? I felt like that for 10 years. When I remember Steve Jobs saying that the only people who are crazy enough to believe they can are the ones who change the world, I'm inspired to keep persevering. I choose to believe that racism will end when everyone does their part. No longer do you have to feel that that's an impossible dream. It's my life's work to empower BIPOC, racialized people of color, and the rest of the industry, to let all of you and them know how important racialized people are to the success of scripted content creation. I want to encourage racialized people to enter the industry, to stay in the industry, and I want the rest of the industry to be able to provide them with a safe place to create without suffering from burnout and mental health issues and microaggressions and frustration due to their inability to make the difference they want to make. I also want the industry to welcome them in. You need them. They will help you enhance your content if you get them trained, because most racialized people don't have a clue how much they have to offer the productions they work on. When you get these tools for yourself and your team, you and them will be unleashed. You can be a difference maker, a peacemaker, a game changer. But there's a few things that you might want to stop doing in the meantime. So there are 3 huge mistakes that you want to avoid. Mistake number 1, ignoring your changing audience. Mistake number 2 is using consultants or brain picking sessions. And mistake number 3 is not hiring racialized people below the line. People make this mistake because they are simply not equipped to engage the lucrative segments of the population. They've been told to hire everyone by their clients, and they want to make their clients happy. They really do want to be inclusive, but they just don't know what else to do beyond colorblind casting and crewing. They have absolutely no expertise in this area. They were great at serving the majority white audiences, but this new world is a mystery. The biggest thing is that inviting new people in to our country, to our schools, has often led to loss. And in the course, I will talk to you about the Lord's Prayer, because when people came and did not want to have their children participating in the Lord's Prayer, the schools took the Lord's Prayer out of the schools. Now that's a huge loss. And I think that there are other strategies that we could be using, because I believe that the more we add, the better. Okay? Keep ignoring your audience and you will lose them. They'll find entertainment that puts them first. They don't need to put up with an abusive relationship with you. They can just give you the finger and move on to watch content made by a director who doesn't treat them like props, or a DOP who doesn't leave them in the shadows, or a script that doesn't leave them out entirely. That means you lose the ratings and box office wars and keep dealing in the most vile stereotypes that are part of the content that kills. So when we stop ignoring our market, there are opportunities galore. Using our system, you will hire the market so that you can serve the market. And you will know exactly who your audience is and what they want. You'll be able to make your audience feel seen and heard and understood. Your content will have the nuance that makes your racialized audiences feel known. You will know what's in it for you, and your team will know what's in it for them, and you'll all take pride in doing your jobs in a way that avoids and negates stereotypes. And you will be the difference that you want to see in the world. You'll see the content changing. Racialized audiences will become loyal viewers. And everyone on your team will be working towards the same goal. Mistake number 2. brain picking and consultants. This is my pet peeve, the brain picking in particular. So, what does the brain picking session look like? Well, okay. Um, what happens is they will bring people from a specific community, like their show has to represent, in to their offices or their studios or wherever, their homes, wherever, and either they'll pay them or maybe they'll feed them, whatever. But then they'll start a conversation where they're asking them, what do you guys want to see? And how would you like to be represented? And blah, 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 blah. And these people pour their stories out and their hearts out. And then they're told, thank you so much. Or maybe they're not told, thank you so much. They're just told, good night. Thanks for coming. And then they don't get hired. Many of them are actors or other people who are working in the industry. They don't get hired on the show. They hire their, normal crews. They're generally white crews. And they go on to make that show based on those stories that they found some kind of connection to that resonated for them. And they go on to make millions and millions and millions with no further input from the community. So the consultants may come in according to the schedule, right? Depending on what it is they're doing. Sometimes, like when I was working as a consultant, I was also hired to be the assistant to the producer. So I was there every day, but that was ridiculous. So I'm sure that now consultants are coming in and giving reading scripts and just working entirely differently than they were then. But when they come in, I mean, and this is true for whether they're dealing with race or whether they're dealing with a boxing scene. They're very likely not to listen to the consultant and do what they want to do anyway, which I think is ridiculous because you've put a lot of energy into creating some form of, reality here. And so, for instance, I was on a set where they were in this fabulous boxing scene and all this, all the paraphernalia was there, of course. And we were in a boxing studio. And then the lead performer is now having to do their, warm up punching, whatever. And they're doing something incorrect. And instead of giving the boxing coach, 5 minutes with them to fix whatever was not going well, don't worry about it. Let's just keep going. Never mind. Okay? The boxing coach is still going to get paid, but all the people that they had hoped to attract with their boxing set have now just changed the channel. Because the people who love boxing know what it's supposed to look like, and there's no authenticity here. So they're gone. So that's, generally speaking, the frustration that consultants have is that they're not listened to. They're there so that they can tell the network, oh, we worked with a consultant, but they're not going to do what the consultant tells them to do anyway. So why are people, everybody is doing this whole thing with these brain picking sessions, and more people are becoming consultants and hiring consultants, and why? Well, I think maybe they're getting their advice from ChatGPT. I think, maybe Google's helping too. Whatever free advice they can find on the internet they're using. They're called best practices most often. I think that this strategy, both of those strategies, in fact, require the least amount of effort, the least expense, and they keep their teams white. So I think that's, in a nutshell, why people make that mistake. So if you're going to keep using consultants and these, vile brain picking sessions, you are, well, any consultant is only going to be able to cover the blind spots of that one person, right? So by hiring several people on your crew, you'll cover more blind spots than one person can. You're going to earn a reputation as being exploitative, and the stereotypes in your content will continue to be there. And you'll actually be part of the problem and not part of the solution. And your shows will continue to offend racialized audiences. So when you're ready to stop making that mistake and use a system like ours, you'll win ratings in box office wars. You'll avoid and negate stereotypes. People will actually see each other differently because of the work that you have created. You'll be part of the solution. You'll have a proud, proud legacy. Because as soon as you start to use a system where racialized people are given a pivotal role, you'll start to see the difference in the quality of your content and its ability to make a positive difference in the world. You'll learn how to get along with your BIPOC team and get the best from them. You'll learn how to collaborate for innovation. You'll have a sense of job satisfaction that you didn't know was possible. You'll have peace of mind, knowing that you're giving your all and you're doing everything there is to do, and that your team knows exactly what to do and not to do to engage the changing marketplace, and you're all making a difference. Mistake number 3. A lot of people and a lot of focus is being put on racialized people above the line, and they are ignoring the below the line folks. So what does that look like? Well, all the training dollars are going towards the writers and directors and producers, whether it's showrunners, line producers. It's great. But that's what's happening. You may have some racialized producers and the writing room may have some diversity, but generally speaking, the white producers are often the ones really pulling the strings. There may be a few racialized directors on the roster, but the writers and the directors are made to feel like they'd better be as good as the white guys or they're gone. The writers and directors may not have any real sense of their cultural expertise and how to share it with the production or how to remove the systemic racism from the process. And racialized performers continue to get short shrift in every department, and racialized stories get shortchanged, and racialized everything gets the short end of the stick. So in every department and phase, from script to screen, the only time that you really understand that there was a racialized director on this show is when the credits roll. So people make this mistake because they're focused on the inception of the concept and the key creative team. And probably because they don't realize the difference that it makes to hire below the line, because when they do it, there is no difference. The other reason could be because they don't actually think race matters, or they think that getting it right doesn't matter because those audiences are so insignificant that nobody cares. Or maybe they don't realize that the storytelling takes place in every single department. There's a story in the lighting, in the sound recording, in the hair, makeup, wardrobe. There's a story in the set and the props and the set deck and the special effects and the music and the dialogue, the picture editing, the sound editing, the Foley, and in the mix. They also may not realize just how much diversity is within each community. And by thinking that they are going to have all of their bases covered, that's where they're probably going to have their blind spot hanging out in the air. Oftentimes, the focus on above the line is about the hiring needs of the networks. Like when the US networks come to Canada, there are certain roles which they will bring talent in for, and then there are certain roles which they will hire talent. And oftentimes they are okay to hire somebody in the writing room, and they're okay to hire a director, and so that's where they want to spend their energy and their focus. The challenge with this is that, well, okay, that's not really the question here. I'm going to keep moving forward. So the cost of ignoring the below the line BIPOC hiring. So what happens when you don't hire BIPOC people below the line is that the white teams actually undermine the efforts that have been made in the script and that the director is making, and they can do it unconsciously, because they have some unconscious biases. They can do it unwittingly because they don't realize the damage that what they're doing is causing, either to the racialized team members or to the story and our audiences. Racialized team members who are hired often struggle to be heard and often feel undermined and unsafe. The perception that whatever they know that I don't know isn't worth knowing. So if you aren't hiring racialized people below the line, you have no access to the nuanced needs of the lucrative racialized audiences. Worst of all, your audiences are going to remain entertained because you feel pressured to keep working with your team instead of hiring the best people for the job. Now, when you stop making that mistake, you're going to experience a flood of new stories and characters that will resonate with the racialized audiences. You'll experience a fulfillment and a peace of mind that you could never imagine from where you are right now. You'll have a sense of job satisfaction that will be so rewarding. You'll know that your contribution is making a difference to how future generations are perceived and treated. You are replacing stereotypes with authenticity. You're respecting your racialized teammates and hearing them out. You will love the response to your work from audiences, and your clients are going to see you as a trusted supplier. So here we go. It is time to actually teach you. So I hope that those mistakes, going over those mistakes, was helpful for you. And hopefully, if you're making any of them, you can cease and desist because they're not helping you at all. So now I'm going to take you through the 4-step framework for mastering the art of inclusive storytelling and making a difference. Step 1 is empower. So why empower? Well, because race matters. Some of us who are from racialized communities have been told that, oh, you're not black. And that's because they think that black is something fixed and unchanging. That it is, my 14-year-old son used to say that when he was 14, he used to say, you're not black. You don't talk like those people on BET. You don't do this like BET. You don't do like BET. Like BET was supposed to be the end all and be all of what blackness was. But anyway, race is something that the people who say that to us are generally white people. And to them, race is like icky. And so they don't want us, who they love, to be getting that icky stuff on us. So they want us to kind of dissociate ourselves from our race. So when we live in a world where our race is ever present, and I don't mean in every single moment, but we can't go anywhere and take it off. Like, I can't just say, okay, my diversity job is over now. Let me just take off my clothes and go back to my regular job. I'm still black all the time. And I want to create a better world for my kids to live in, right? And for my kids to be able to become men in, And so in order to do that, I need to be able to empower both the racialized people to ignore all of those lessons that they've learned about dissociating yourself from race. Race is icky. You don't want to have anything to do with race. Ignore race. It's not a reality. And I also need to empower non-racialized people because they too have been disempowered around race, right? Afraid to say and do the wrong thing, afraid to offend anybody. That's disempowerment, right? So we want everybody to be able to feel safe and strong and confident in this conversation. So that's why we want to spend some energy empowering people. The empowerment step empowers by giving you templates and guidelines and assessments and planning tools that help standardize the process of communication, which removes the fear and the guilt and the shame that can otherwise enter communication and get in the way of being understood. Being empowered means we can do what we need to do to make change. We transform the way we work together so that trust can build. We reclaim stories that have been untold and lost, one audience at a time. Bigger audiences mean bigger bottom lines. Correct content means removing the lies that have persisted about who racial groups are, moving past the single story, appreciating and valuing each other. Change can't be made in a state of weakness or disempowerment. You'll see new stories about racialized communities. You'll take pride in your work. Most people don't plan or track because they're afraid it'll all be too daunting. Often when we look back at things we've done and consider having planned it all out, we think, God, we'd never have done it if we'd known. But planning actually makes things much more manageable and less stressful for us. So having a way to say things when we're afraid to say the wrong thing is exactly what we need. People don't realize that they're being undermined by the systemic racism in the industry on the daily. It's too difficult to empower racialized people in every sector and every department. It's too big. Those are the kind of excuses that we hear to not do this work. Why be bothered empowering BIPOC? That means things will have to change. If the way things are works to your advantage, you're going to try and ignore the realities of the market as long as the market will allow. Well, let this session be a wake-up call. We are the market. It's up to us to say enough is enough. Who is going to bother to get the training to learn how to analyze the industry if it isn't us? Step 2, innovate. Why the innovation step is important. In this step, we show you an innovative process that allows your ideas to reach the screen to engage your segment of the population. This is where we satisfy the needs of the audience. This is the step where racialized people share their truth. This is the step where we learn how to take care of our mental health and to create healthy work environments. This is the step where friendships are forged. What are the benefits of the innovation step? Well, it's really got some exciting results. It eliminates and gets rid of the impact of stereotypes. You're going to see more audience engagement. You're going to see collaborative decision making, and you're going to see a very supportive and inclusive process at work. Why don't most people do this innovation step? Well, I don't think most people have been trying to create content with diverse talent and for diverse audiences for decades like I have. They just haven't prioritized these markets. They don't know the economic power of these markets, and it all feels too big to get everybody to try and do things slightly differently. They've been ignoring racialized voices. They don't care about getting it right, and they let time and money rule the day. Step 3, sustain. So, in a world where racialized people are still often the last hired and the first fired, it's really necessary to have a process that protects them. So, this process ensures that everyone is treated fairly and for the long haul, not just for a pilot project, as though all the racialized people will have disappeared by the end of the pilot project. The benefits of the sustain step is that you have some retention of racialized people in the industry, and they're actually able to make a decent living. That they will actually be managed and developed and invested in. And when that happens, then they'll be more likely to stay for the long haul. I think part of the reason that our industry doesn't have a sustained process in the same way that corporations do is that we're a freelance industry and a unionized industry, and perhaps the unions are the ones that would be responsible for nurturing, but the experience of racialized people with the unions even has often been that they've been blacklisted before they've been supported. Step number 4, a job specific checklist. So, why checklists? Well, checklists are perfect tools to make sure that everyone is doing the job right and that there's no confusion. So there's no excuse for not doing the right thing or not doing everything that could be done. And those are the main concerns that we have when it comes to becoming inclusive. They're used really often in super high stakes environments like hospitals. And in hospital environments, they use checklists because they're simple to use and nobody has to be offended by being reminded of one of the points on their checklist, because those checklists are designed for complex tasks. So they use them in surgery, for instance. And they're great for departmental meetings to ensure that all the bases have been covered. They have done surveys and research, and within the hospital environment, there are thousands of lives, millions of lives that have been saved, and millions of dollars that have been saved because of checklists. And so when we have that kind of data, why not use a tool like that for ourselves, right? So, and our industry really already uses checklists to a large degree. If we think about call sheets and DPRs and all of those tools that we have are really like, okay, now what? Fill in the blanks, right? Checklists. So it's not new to us, and when we're talking about learning something new, it's a very simple transition for us to make. Well, I don't think that people have thought about using checklists around the diversity piece. I think, you know, they're definitely doing some more stuff around diversity planning and reporting and so forth. But I don't think that people have really understood just how much peace of mind they could really get from using checklists here. I don't think that they would actually understand, because each department is slightly different, right? We're not talking about, oh, let's all get along. No, this is actually about the work of your job. So it really is a big task, and it's taken me, I've spent a lot of time on it. And so it is, it is something that you have to value the market that you're going to be doing all this work for, or you're not going to do all this work. So I think those are the reasons that people haven't used it. I want to make sure that you take one thing away from this whole process. And that is that you can engage the BIPOC audience without fear. And that fear comes from having to hire BIPOC workers and not knowing where to begin, how to make that happen, and all of that. So that's a large part of what we do in our course. I've developed this framework or system to master inclusive storytelling for changing audiences. And I hope I've given you a really good sense of what that is all about. So the big question is, how can you apply this system to your productions and engage today's racialized audiences? Learning that putting audience first by hiring racialized below the line and collaborating to innovate in various departments is the number one thing that committed me to hiring BIPOC on and off screen. It completely boosted my confidence level and allowed me to be willing to go to the wall to make it happen. It makes a massive difference when production is trained. So, you got two choices. One, you can waste tons of time and money trying to figure out a system yourself, or working with someone who hasn't spent 20 years in the trenches of creating content on racialized audiences and working with racialized people. Or you can go with choice number 2 and really get yourself on the fast track to getting results with inclusive grit. So I know that you're committed to making a difference. And now that you know that it's going to take hiring racialized people in every department from script to screen and hearing what they have to say, you can either fumble around trying to figure it out on your own, or you can get a veteran to show you how and take decades and millions of production dollars off your trajectory. Using the tools in the Empower modules will make everyone clear on why they're doing what they're doing. They'll have the holistic tools they need to get them, over the hump whenever they get stuck. They'll have control of the process for themselves and see how flexible and creative it is. They'll be able to plan exactly what the unique needs of this production are for BIPOC hiring to ensure that they have what they need to engage the racialized markets. The innovate step is where you get an innovative process for collaborating with BIPOC. This system helps BIPOC share their cultural expertise at the right time and in the right way that enables it to hit the screen and benefit audiences. The industry will learn what it takes to sustain the careers of racialized team members and to use their talent to engage audiences. For decades, all the energy has been going into training diverse talent, but little energy has been spent preparing the industry to receive the racialized talent. As a result, discrimination has been allowed to go unchecked, with racialized people being blackballed by union members for no reason but the color of their skin. They've had to find another line of work. Sustain addresses those issues and asks the industry to think differently so they can do differently. We're sabotaging our success if we don't have a wide range of racialized people on our shows to cover our blind spots. Racialized and non-racialized alike use the system and the job-specific checklists. It gives everyone peace of mind knowing that they know how to do their job in an inclusive manner. They'll have the resources on their teams to make sure that they can find the suppliers and contacts from the various racial groups, and they'll have clarity about the landmines to avoid and the checkpointers to guide their actions. You can get with the times and serve the largest audiences in every major market in North America. You can hire BIPOC below the line. You can let your guys become allies. You can augment audiences, boost the bottom line, crank up creativity, and transform teamwork. The question isn't if you'll make your money back, it's how many times over will you make your money back. You're all wondering what all this game-changing information and support is going to cost. The system is sold with all four pieces together. If there isn't a job list for you, you can get just the three pieces of power, innovate, and sustain. There are 20 job lists ready now, and we will be releasing them 5 at a time. More will be coming online in coming months. There are about 32 checklists altogether. In the meantime, you can pre-order your list and learn the first 3 steps of the peacemaking inclusive secret system of empowering, innovating, and sustaining to serve your racialized market. When you pre-order, as soon as your job list is ready, send it. If you order before this webinar is over, you'll receive an extra 3 months of live weekly Wow, that's not a word. Okay, so we have got some fast action bonuses for you, which means that if you order before this session is over, you'll receive an extra 3 months of live monthly 3-hour coaching sessions for a total of 6 months. The second fast action bonus is an extra year in the course community. That's a value of almost $1,200. So you're going to get access to what is our brand spanking new community where students and alumni will eventually be populating. And in the early days, you're going to have a lot of access to me because there won't be a lot of other people in the community yet. As the community grows, then more and more people will be able to help each other. But for the time being, it'll be me you're talking to. So you can leave your messages in there, your comments in there. I will find them and I will respond to you and you'll be notified, and you can ask me anything about engaging today's racialized audiences and I will give you a hand. Fast action bonus number 3. Being a graduate from this training is actually going to mean something. If you order before this webinar is over, you're going to receive a free year in the graduate directory for a total of 2 years, because everybody gets 1 year. You'll get an extra year for a total of 2 years. And that's valued at about $27 a month. People are going to want to find you. For that reason, we will have a graduate directory ready and waiting for you to be easy to find. So these are our bonuses. If you don't purchase today, you still receive these bonuses. So we have a semi-precious bracelet we talked about at the beginning of the webinar in the session, and you get 3 months of monthly coaching. You get 1 year of a private online course community. You get a year of the graduate listing, so you'll be in that listing file. So the course and the support you will be provided while you take the course ensure that you'll be successful as long as you don't give up. Every show is unique, and the system allows for that flexibility. So here's the deal. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. And that's for a few reasons. It's not even really that simple, because as you saw me going through the last, 2 decades of trying to do this work and seeing all the ways that people could interpret, diversity or multiculturalism or ethnicity or being inclusive, like, I have to concede it's not simple. That's why I've created this course. So you don't have to drive down all the wrong roads, and you can just stay on the fast track to success. So the good news is this: you can do hard things. We do them all the time in our industry. We innovate all the time, especially on the technical side. We're constantly innovating. And so because we've now changed markets, it really is time for us to do some innovating on the creative side. So you can see here, we've got all of the products, all of the bonuses, and the total is $10,653. And that's when you get all your fast action bonuses as well, right? So, and we're not going to charge you that kind of money for this program. Instead, we want to make it as possible. And so we are pricing the program. This is what you would get if you got, or when you order today. Okay. So when you order, you're going to start with the import section, and depending on where it may be made out daily or week, we're going to get you the Empower, starting with the Empower section. Once you've completed the Empower section, then the next section, Innovate, will be delivered, and the next section will show. So you'll be inside a platform getting this communication. You will be receiving it in print. It will also be in audio, and it will also be video. So depending on your preferred method of watching or hearing or reading your content, all of those are available to you. So everybody should be able to find the one I like to listen. So I listen a lot. I listen to when I'm in the garden. I listen to things when in the car, when I'm doing laundry, when I'm working out. Like, you can do them all the time. So I prefer watching. I don't like being stuck in one place, but everybody has their strengths and their preferred method of learning. So I my best to get everybody what they need. So hopefully that works for you. Most of the courses are at the $9.96 range. There's two that have a lot more content in them that are the $19.98. If you are a producer or production company and you want to give your team that's in a certain phase, like your early prep or late prep, production or whatever, we have packages which I'll show you momentarily. So we've tried to make it as simple to use as possible, and also for you to work it as a team. Because I spend a lot of time thinking about, you know, should I give this process to the racialized people first? But then if they go out there into the world all by themselves, the only one on the team knowing this process, it's not going to be good for them. So the best thing to do is for everybody on the team to be learning the process together. And that also helps level the playing field for everybody, and it's also makes it really great grounds for forging strong friendships. So most of the time when you're watching in a session like this and you're waiting to hear what the refund policy is, it gives you some confidence and you go ahead and you put your money down because you can always get it back. Well, I'm not going to have a refund policy. I'm going to tell you why. Because the first time I encountered a course that did not have a refund policy, I paid more attention to that course, and I really worked that course because there was no way out, right? And so what I really believe is that you got to burn the bridges behind you. There's no going back, only moving forward. So you got to commit to this process. And paying the fees with no escape will actually keep your feet to the fire. And the only conditions under which there'd be a refund anyway would be something bizarre, like, you did all the work and nothing happened. You didn't end up hiring any more people. Like, none of that would ever be possible. So it's just, you can't do the work and not have the results. It doesn't work that way. So you're betting on you, because you're the only part of this process that could fail. And that's because you decide to stop. So I'm hoping, because you've invested in this, that you're not going to let your money go to waste. Okay? And you're actually going to step up to the plate and you're going to do what needs to be done. So your choices are, you can either contribute to the chaos, keep your team stressed out and resentful because what you do, and they're afraid to do the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing, or you can provide them with the tools they need to serve today's market. Now, I'm wondering if you're hesitant at all about telling your team that you want to make the world a better place. Are you afraid they're going to laugh at you or call you crazy? I want you to never, ever give up on making a difference, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't a difference maker, a peacemaker. So once you have made your choice and you are going to click on the Get Started button, you're taken to a sales page. And that's especially great if you need to see something in writing before you make your choice. So you'll scroll down to the bottom of that page, and there you will see a section that looks like this for producers or production companies who want to purchase the product by the phase for their feature film or their series teams. So make sure you're in the right section for your needs and you aren't purchasing more or less than you need. And then because each package has a number of users, and it actually says on most of them what those numbers of users are. So you just let us know who your users will be and we'll get them registered from this end. I think we're going to have to do it manually so far. I'm trying to find a way to automate it, but I don't know that I'm going to be successful there. So I realized that nobody was training the folks on the front lines, those whose work was directly impacting the audience, and those whose work was indirectly impacting the audience. So there are job-specific checklists for a lot of the jobs. So those of you on the front lines who are going to finally have the information you need to stop undermining your writers and directors and alienating your audiences, and to stop worrying about whether you're doing the right or the wrong thing. I know that the thought of creating content that kills makes you sick to your stomach. And you will be so relieved to have a solution that's not only engaging the underserved audiences, but also making a difference in our societies. When you select your package, you'll click on that select button. You will end up here. And this is essentially the registration form. And we're going to need you to give us your full address so we can send you your bracelet. We also need your phone number so we can send you SMS messages about delivery and so forth. And then you get to choose your payment schedule. So depending on the product, you'll have, the full price, and then you might have a 3-month payment schedule. We want to make sure everybody can afford to take this course. And I'm sure you guys probably have shoes in your closet that are as much as this course. But anyway, you always pay less when you make a single payment. And but no shame in making 3 payments, whatever works for you. So I want you to think for a minute about how great it's going to feel when you get back on a set or in your post-production place or wherever you are, and you actually know what to do. You've actually got this covered. You actually have a sense of confidence. And not only confidence, but you've got a sense of purpose. You're committing yourself and your team to being part of the solution. And with clarity on what can be done in their department to be more inclusive. Like, oh my gosh, that just feels like a weight off